All right, welcome back, guys. We are on day 16 now. So this is going pretty well. I hope you guys are all doing well. Today is obviously a big day in the UK. Nice rhyme there. Big day in the UK with the state funeral for Queen Elizabeth. So let's get into some writing. Now, talking about on Friday, last session, going with chapter 2. Still not quite happy with chapter 2, but it doesn't matter because I think what we're going to do is just get to the good stuff. We are going to move ahead. All right, we're going to write what we know, and yeah, we're going to get some of the good stuff down. So massive shout out, by the way, to Tupper Hunter for some great messages of support on the both on the chat and off the chat. So yeah, really nice to have some fellow writers getting in on this action. Okay, so here we go. This is what we're doing today. We've got the end of chapter 1 pretty much sewn up with our 18th captain of the Yakuza, delivering the job, delivering the promise really of the novel, that she has recruited our protagonist, Mr. Sharp, for a job. And the job is to kill her sister. So we're going to just touch back on that just so everyone's caught up. And then instead of going into chapter 2, which I'm not quite sold on where the idea is going, we're going to skip ahead to what happens when our protagonist meets the sister. All right, so that's going to be today's challenge, today's idea. Let me know, guys, if you're new to the channel and you're just tuning in now. Just say in the chat hello, and I will catch you up further if you need to be caught up. So let's just go back from here and let's just read this line here and go forward from here. So the 18th captain of the Yakuza, the Japanese mob, has just offered a job to our protagonist, Mr. Sharp, and Mr. Sharp has basically just said, here it is, okay, I accept the job, provided you can pay me what he wants to get paid with. So, wonderful, she said. And so, the 18th captain of the Yakuza served me tea and grapes and told me all about her twin sister, the 7th captain of the Yakuza, whom she wanted me to kill. Mizuki was always a mischievous child, said Kyuri. Mizuki the Tanuki, my father used to call her. Do you know she once broke into Principal Tanaka's office in order to change her end-of-year grades? She would have gotten away with it too had she not also been compelled to take some very indecent pictures of herself and upload them to his computer before leaving. Pretty insidious, I said, sensing a kindred spirit in this sister. So again, here we're just, we're alluding to the fact that actually our protagonist, Mr. Sharp, he might have, when he eventually does meet the sister, he's going to maybe, be torn between his allegiance to the one sister and then his affinity for this new sister. So just one simple line there, and we can pull on that thread later if we want to. Okay, pretty insidious. Pretty nothing, snapped Kyori Matsumoto. It brought disgrace to our family and dishonor to our name. It was the first time I'd seen any emotion from her. I glanced at her bodyguards who looked equally stunned. But yes, she said, reeling herself back in like a viper. Like you, my father brushed it off as unchanneled potential. But I don't suppose you can understand how that made me feel, do you, Mr. Sharp? No, I'm always everyone's favourite, I said. So actually so here we can do a bit of editing, because that joke is not really a joke anymore since we changed what came previously. So I think, okay, if you imagine, these are twin sisters, right? So I think the joke is actually, these are twin sisters, and she's just said up here that, her twin sister, she broke into the principal's office, basically took some nude pictures of herself, put them on the computer to try and get him, fired. So since they're twin sisters, obviously he's gonna, she must have felt quite naked. Okay, so that's probably a better, or at least a more a joke that is more in keeping with what's come before. It makes sense. So yeah, but I don't suppose you can understand how that made me feel, do you, Mr. Sharp? Naked, I imagine, I said. But how do a couple of 20-somethings become Yakuza captains? Anyway, my story is simple, she said, sipping her tea. My father died tragically. I ascended to captain in his place. I could have been wrong, but I was pretty sure I saw a smile behind that teacup. Naturally, this never sat well with Mizuki. Spoiled child that she is, she believed father would bequeath her the great honor of captaincy. But only I am the firstborn, and only I have earned the right. How did Mizuki come to power? It's Principal Tanaka all over again, said Kyori. 10 months ago, Mizuki ascended to captain of the Koto ward, and it has been a nightmare ever since. She who controls Koto controls the docks, and already the Yakuza has suffered many setbacks due to her lack of sense. Once again, she brings dishonor to my father's legacy and disgrace to our name. My superiors will not stand for war between the captains, but something must be done. There is a captain's meeting in 2 weeks. Mizuki must be dealt with before then. Okay, and then we sort of end this chapter, with a line, and that's the plot set up. So here's what I'm thinking. This is what I've been thinking about over the weekend. Is that here's a bit of research that I've done on the Yakuza, and this is, guys, just read this, and you can't help but be just stunned at the beauty of what research can give you. So let me bring this up onto my screen, and hopefully you guys can see this. 1 second. Here we go. Okay, so this is literally just reading from Wikipedia, having done a little bit of, just typing in Yakuza. So it goes through, they're sort of, a violent mafia-like criminal organization. Oh, 1 second. Let's just bring that back. 1 second. Got my screens confused there. Okay, sorry. Yeah. We've got, it's basically saying that this is a mafia-like criminal organization, blah, 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 blah. But when it starts to talk about some of their rituals, right, like this one. Read this, guys. Let's read this together and just, does this not just scream a scene immediately? Like, this is a must-have scene in any Yakuza book. Yubitsume, or finger shortening, or otoshime, is a Japanese ritual to atone for offenses to another, a way to be punished or show sincere apology and remorse to one another by means of amputating portions of one's own little finger. In modern times, it's primarily performed by the Yakuza, one of the most prominent Japanese criminal organizations. The ritual is thought to have originated with the Bakuto, itinerant gamblers who were predecessors of the modern Yakuza. If a person was unable to pay off a gambling debt, Yubitsume was sometimes considered an alternative form of payment. Yubitsume was a form of credit and reputation score. In Japanese swordsmanship, the little finger's grip is the tightest on the hilt. A little finger amputee was therefore unable to grip his sword properly, weakening him in battle and making him more dependent on the protection of his boss. This is great stuff. This is just great history, and you can just imagine a character, just going into it, right? Very kind of Tarantino, I guess, thing to do. But anyway, so read on. Ritual details. To perform Yubitsume, one lays down a small clean cloth and lays the hand onto the cloth facing down. Using an extremely sharp knife, the person cuts off the portion of his left little finger above the top knuckle of the finger, of the tip of the finger. So just this part of the finger, right? That's what they chop off. And then wraps the severed portion in cloth and submits the package, literally submits the tip of the finger that they've just cut off, very graciously to his oyabun, or the godfather, right? The godfather equivalent of the Japanese mob, right? And right, so that's sort of the whole thing, right? And then it says if more offenses are committed, then the person has to move on to the next joint, right? So it just keeps going, right? You make the more and more offenses that you have, the more sort of fingers the more of your hand gets, chopped off. So, okay, there's a little bit of research done, and just immediately we have a scene. We know we're going to see some character who's missing the tip of their little finger, right? Or we're going to see someone actually have to go and do this ritual. Maybe our protagonist is like, he fails the 18th captain of the Yakuza, right? She sends him on a mission, and he doesn't do it. And she's like, don't worry, we have a way to correct that. We have this thing called yubitsume. And she hands him a very clean napkin, a little clean cloth. And she hands him a very sharp knife. And she says, go ahead. And he's there. And we have this scene where he's just holding a knife to his own finger. And, what's going to happen. So that's one way we can go. I actually think that would be a really cool scene to have. I don't know what you guys think. But basically the idea was, a little bit of research there, and immediately, it suggests one scene of the novel. So maybe I'm not quite happy with where chapter 2 is going so far, but so what? I can write the scene, this scene. I can write this scene where our guy has failed the Yakuza captain. So that's what we're going to do now. And then, it's another way of writing a novel. Instead of writing it in sort of a linear fashion, we can just say, well, let's write this scene, let's write this scene, and let's write that scene, the three big scenes that we know and we love, and then we'll stitch them together somehow. Probably those in-between scenes aren't really interesting anyway. So once we have the big scenes down, we'll just sort of connect them, together with whatever needs to be connected. Okay, so the way I see it is this. He goes to meet the sister. So I'm just going to put this here. And I'm just going to title it Sharp Meets Mizuki. Okay, now I don't know where they're meeting, and I don't know. Remember, we're pantsing. We're making up this novel as we go along, but we've got a really good first chapter. So we know the plot in general, and we know what Kyori Matsumoto has just said, that, the sister was... the sister is the one who she wants to kill. Okay, and we have a bit of a backstory there with the father. He favored he favored Mizuki over Kyori Matsumoto, and she's basically just out for blood. So let's try and use the research that we've just done and write one page a day, remember. Let's write one page of this scene this future scene where they meet. So I think the first thing that's going to happen, obviously, is that if Sharp, our guy, Mr. Sharp, Oliver Sharp, our protagonist, meets Kyori Matsumoto's twin sister Mizuki, obviously he's going to notice that there must be some differences between the two of them. So let's try something like that to begin. He's just making observations. There were, only, two differences I could tell between them. Again, this is just like we're just jumping into this scene. We'll have to later on go back and sort of set the scene where this is taking place and all the rest. But we can use the research that we've just done to write something. So let's see here. First, that Mizuki wore, maybe like one of the sisters, wears very traditional garbs. The other one does it. Just some small differences, whatever. Or in fact, okay, I've got a great idea. I've just got a brilliant idea. I think this is brilliant. Guys, is this brilliant or not? Let me know, because, okay, I just want to say the background. So, we said before that, Mizuki was always a mischievous child. My father used to, Mizuki the Tanuki, my father used to call her. I got to remember to speak a bit slower. I'm excited at this idea. So follow along with me. There's this, these two sisters were growing up as daughters of a Yakuza captain, their father. The father always favored Mizuki Matsumoto, the slightly younger sister. Kyori Matsumoto was always the good child, the one who was groomed to take over from her father. She was the one who did everything he said and did it correctly. Mizuki, the younger sister, was the one always getting in trouble, changing grades in the principal's office and then indecent photos and all of that stuff. She's the trouble child. And yet, the father obviously favors her over the good child. So the good child is jealous. And we said at a certain point, Kyori Matsumoto realizes that she's not going to get the captaincy. Her father is going to give it to his favored younger daughter. And Kyori Matsumoto then goes and kills the father, takes her birthright as firstborn, takes her birthright, and then, and this is the reason why now these two sisters have such bad blood between them. So that's the backstory. And what I'm thinking is, when Kyori Matsumoto takes over by force, right? She kills her father and she takes by force. Yeah, Itanshi, you like that, or what do you think? So when she takes by force this captaincy, I think the first act that she does as a captain is take revenge. Might need a summary of what came before, of the story so far. If you do, I can definitely do that, guys. So basically what I'm saying is, once this sister, who was always jealous of her younger sister... Okay. I'm going to go through the story, don't worry. I'm going to read it through in a second, so you guys will all be caught up. Everyone will be caught up, and then I'll write this future scene. But let me just make this point here. That basically what we've got is two sisters who were squabbling, and one was treated unfairly, and the older sister kills her father, takes over as captain of the Yakuza, takes her so-called birthright, and then she punishes her younger sister with what we just read, with this Yubitsume, what is it? Yubitsume, right? She makes her, right, now that I'm captain, right, I'm going to make you pay for being father's favorite. And she just makes her cut off, like, basically her whole hand. Something like that. Okay, so and there you go. There's the research coming in, and we're keeping the characters really tight. Okay, let me do a read-through, just so that everyone is caught up. And then just also a massive shout-out to Kitty Wistful, who... about 2 weeks ago in this online, we came up with this sort of future scene together where the two sisters have to meet each other. But this is where I'm taking the scene right now. So, okay, let's read through this story. And guys, tell me what you think in the chat. It's always good to get feedback. So we're going to go from the beginning. It's just one chapter. It should take about 8 minutes to read it, something like that. But let me know what you think. Remember, this is a novel we are making up from scratch, okay? But the first chapter seems to be coming together quite nicely. All right, strap yourselves in, and here we go. I'm going to tell you a story, which you'll believe, and then I'll tell you the truth, which you won't. It goes like this. 3 days after I arrived in Japan, I came back to my hotel and the concierge told me that a package had been left for me. She was wrong. I wasn't expecting a package. I didn't know anyone in Japan, nor had I told anyone that I was coming here. So who could be sending me a package? But she held it out to me all the same. It was a standard brown envelope, about A4 in size with no obvious markings, not even my name. I asked who had left it, but the concierge told me that it was her colleague who had accepted the package, and so she didn't know. Needless to say, I shouldn't have taken it, but I've never been one to make good decisions. The package felt heavier than it looked, and I heard a metallic sound inside. I'd once watched a documentary about those postal bombs back in the 1980s. They'd been filled with all sorts of scrap metal as shrapnel, and probably made the same noise just before they'd gone off. Not that I'm one of those paranoid nutcases, but I do have an ex-wife. No, said a voice in my head, Sabrina wouldn't kill me via unmarked postal bomb. She'd use FedEx. Is everything all right, sir? Asked the concierge. I don't suppose you'd open this for me. Sir? No, I didn't think she would, nor did I get the chance to convince her because another guest, some big fat American woman, barged me out of the way in order to check herself in. My God, I thought, she could have killed us all. I took the package back to my room on the second floor, sat at the desk, and after a few minutes of silent contemplation, I opened the package and looked inside. The metallic sound had been made by one of those puzzle boxes, the kind where you have to slide around the secret panels in order to unlock the contents. There was also a slip of paper inside. Its message had been written in cursive hand and read as follows: I know why you're here, Mr. Sharp. I know what you're looking for. Be at the Green Bird restaurant at 7 p.m. P.S. Bring the puzzle box. I rushed to the window and looked down at the street. I saw pedestrians all sorts going about their business, but nothing stood out as odd. Nobody looking up at my window, nobody in the adjacent building looking across into my room. I went to the door, checked the hallway. Nothing there either. Turning back to my room, nothing seemed out of place. I'd left the do not disturb sign on the door, and I knew the maid hadn't been in because the bed was still unmade from the morning. I checked the closet. Nothing appeared out of place. My single duffel bag still had everything that it should have. Nothing was missing. I rang down to reception to see if anyone had called the room today, but nobody had. I paced back and forth, staring at the opened package. Who was this person? How did they know who I was? And more importantly, how did they know why I was here? And who the hell sends a puzzle box anyway? Not Sabrina, that was for sure. She hated puzzles. And besides, she'd have written the message in blood. The alarm clock showed just after 6:15 in the evening. I knew there was a flight back to London at 7:10. If I hurried, I could make the airport in time. No, I'd spend too long getting to this point. If I missed this opportunity now, I'd never get it back again. But I couldn't take any chances. I called down to the concierge and had them order me a taxi to the Green Bird restaurant. Then I grabbed the puzzle box and headed out. In the back of the taxi, I examined the puzzle box. It was made of black wood, hard and smooth to the touch. The design was an elaborate geometric mosaic and made my eyes hurt if I stared at it too long. I prodded the sides to find the secret panels, but I was too flustered to have any patience. How the hell had someone found me? Damn, I cursed, and the taxi driver shot me a look in the rearview mirror. I gave him a dirty look back. Problem? I asked. Traffic's bad, he said meekly. He gives a reason. I told him to step on it. We moved through the east side streets of Shinjuku, going deep into Kabukicho, the red light district. Lots of gambling, prostitution, and lowlives this side of town. The kind of people I deal with a little too much for my liking. But then again, that's how I'd met Sabrina. I turned my attention back to figuring out who was messing with me. It didn't make any sense. Nobody could have known I was coming to Japan. I'd planned everything meticulously, right down to the new alias I'd made. The taxi pulled up about 30 minutes after we'd left the hotel. The driver told me the Green Bird was about halfway down the bustling street to our left. I couldn't miss it. But I walked straight past the place without giving it a single glance. I wasn't about to just walk into some random restaurant without checking out the place first. I had no idea who or what I was dealing with, and if things went to hell, like they often did, I needed to know I could get out quickly. There was an alleyway beside the restaurant. It had a fire escape going to the roof and a couple of dumpsters that I could smell all the way from the street. There was a homeless guy slumped against one of the dumpsters with a needle sticking out of his arm. Nobody seemed to care. I checked my watch. It was 5 to 7, 5 minutes before I'd been told to be here. Obviously, I was walking into a trap, but I'd come too far now. 3 years of searching, I couldn't back off now. So I took a breath and walked into the Green Bird, straight into a trap. The place was empty, except for one table in the middle of the room. The woman sitting at it looked up at me as I entered. She was young and good-looking with those long black lashes and sticky red lips. I should have run straight out of there. But 2 bruisers in cheap black suits stepped up behind me and blocked the entrance. The woman checked her watch and smiled her red lips. She motioned to the seat opposite her, and it wasn't really a question. I glanced at the fire door in the far right of the room. I might not have been as big as the bruisers behind me, but I was sure as hell faster. I thought about the homeless guy slumped against the dumpster. No doubt these 2 would trip over him if they tried to chase me. But I wanted answers, so I joined the woman at a table. "There is a story we tell children," she said, speaking in Japanese like she knew I could understand her, "about a troublesome tanuki who plagued an honest farmer for days on end. One day the farmer laid a trap and caught the tanuki. 'Do not untie it,' he told his wife, 'before I come back from the market tonight.' But the farmer's wife was a kindly woman, and the tanuki's hopeless crying soon got to her. She took pity on the little creature, but no sooner did she untie it, did the tanuki kill her, chop her into pieces, and make a soup out of her. The tanuki then shape-shifted into the form of the farmer's wife, and when the farmer came home, the tanuki fed him the soup. The woman snapped her fingers, and from the kitchen came a waiter, who put 2 bowls of steaming soup in front of us. The woman smiled at me. 'Go ahead,' she said. I glanced at the fire door again. 'That's a children's story?' I said, but my feet were dancing under the table. The woman ate a spoon of soup and licked her red lips. 'My name is Kyori Matsumoto, Yakuza Captain 18, head of the clan Matsumoto, and she who lays claim to the 4th Ward Shinjuku of the great city, Tokyo.' 'Oliver Sharp,' I said, spooning my own soup. 'Troublesome tanuki.' I couldn't tell whether that quip got to her because she had about the best poker face I'd ever seen, a flawless complexion like a perfect porcelain doll. She sat tall and upright, all her movements precise, as if choreographed well in advance. I couldn't help watching her red lips glide over her soup spoon. 'The puzzle box,' she said eventually. I took it out of my pocket and put it on the table, but I said nothing. I wanted her to do all the talking. 'The first puzzle boxes were made long ago in Hakone,' said Kyori Matsumoto, 'a safeguard for personal jewelry and keeping children's fingers from sewing needles. But as their complexity grew, the samurai and ancient warlords began using them to pass their secret messages. I received a similar puzzle box upon my ascendancy to Yakuza Captain.' 'Yeah, I didn't realize the Japanese mob was so liberal,' I said. Kyori Matsumoto fixed me with a look. It was a dangerous game to play, but I'd be damned if I let some woman keep the upper hand. I'd already come running here like a dog, but I could be a Rottweiler when I wanted to. 'It took me 5 weeks to solve that box,' she said, and in the corner of my eye, I saw one of her bodyguards pull out a gun. 'You, Mr. Sharp, will have until I finish my soup.' I snorted. 'Ha! Nice try, love,' I thought, but I wasn't about to play her game, and nor did I have to. Her bodyguard wasn't going to shoot me while I was sitting so close to her. So I picked up my spoon and slurped my soup. The bodyguard snarled at me to show some respect, but the 18th captain of the Yakuza refused to be ruffled. I still had a clear path to the fire door, so I decided to test that cool exterior with a bit of shock treatment. I waited until she was down to a last spoonful, and then snapped up my own spoon and smashed it down on the puzzle box. shattering the damn thing and busting open its contents. Solved, I said. Kyori Matsumoto didn't flinch. In fact, I got the impression that it'd take a bomb going off before she might yawn. She glanced at the broken puzzle box, dabbed her lips with her napkin, and turned to her bodyguard. Tell them to serve the fish. The waiter served the next course, which I recognized instantly as fugu, or pufferfish. A single drop of fugu poison can kill an adult. Chefs have to undergo special training to learn how to prepare it. Apparently, that makes it a delicacy. Not that I'd ever tried it, seeing as how a single plate runs upwards of $250. Kyori Matsumoto slipped to the first sliver between her glistening red lips while I turned my attention to the puzzle box I'd smashed. Among the debris lay a fluffy, white rabbit's foot. The farmer had a neighbor, said Kyori Matsumoto, picking up her parable. A crafty rabbit who swore to avenge the wife's death. He befriended the tanuki and invited him one day to harvest grass for the winter. On the way back home, the rabbit set the tanuki's bundle of grass on fire, and when the tanuki asked what the crackling sound was, the rabbit said they were walking on the crackling mountain. When the flames burned the tanuki's back and he was in terrible pain, the crafty rabbit helpfully applied a lotion made of chili powder. The next week, the rabbit invited the wounded tanuki to go fishing. He built a wooden boat for himself and a clay boat for the tanuki. Naturally, it wasn't long before the clay boat began to sink into the lake, and when the tanuki called out to his friend for help, the rabbit only laughed and said, "Now the farmer's wife is avenged." The rabbit then hit the tanuki with his oar, and both the tanuki and the clay boat sank into the lake forever. The farmer was so grateful that he invited the rabbit to live with him, and they became firm friends. My God, I thought. I'd wanted her to do all the talking, but if this Yakuza captain kept speaking in parables, I mean, at least Sabrina would just call me a bastard and be done with it. Tell me why I'm here, I said plainly. Kyori Matsumoto finished her fugu and placed her cutlery neatly on her empty plate. I have enough tanukis on my farm, Mr. Sharp, she said. What I need is a rabbit. And how about what I need? I said. I never knew a farmer who could grow that. She gave a signal to the kitchen and the waiter came and removed our plates, replacing them with a black basket of what I thought were plums. These are my favorite, said Kyori, fingering the plump fruit. Father took me to Ishikawa to harvest the first vintage and I've never missed one since. I still remember how his eyes lit up when he talked about the incredible new fruit that he'd helped to produce. The fruits of our labor are sweetened by the sweat of our brow, he used to say. And the ruby Roman grapes are sweet indeed. Each grape weighs over 20 grams and is at least 18% sugar. And that's only the regular class. The premium class, such as these, require each grape to be over 30 grams. Grapes, I said, astonished. Kyori Matsumoto plucked one from the heavy bunch, holding it on a flat palm as she examined its perfection. I stared silently as her red lips softly caressed the hard, round ball, a split second before her teeth pierced its flesh. A trickle of juice ran down her chin and she smiled at me as she swallowed. So you see, Mr. Sharp, the soil is rich in Shinjuku. Yeah, I thought, glancing back at the bodyguard who'd pulled a gun on me, but what's in the compost? How did you know I was in Japan? I asked. I know everything that goes on in my ward. How do you know what I'm looking for? And then Kyori needs to give him a good reason. I clenched my jaw. I couldn't believe how poorly I could read her face. Surely she couldn't have known what I was looking for. She hadn't even named it explicitly. Then again, I don't suppose you would if you knew what it was. Either way, I should have run straight out of there. But like I said, I've never been one to make good decisions. Okay, I said. Wonderful, she said. And so the 18th captain of the Yakuza served me tea and grapes, and told me all about her twin sister, the 7th captain of the Yakuza, whom she wanted me to kill. Mizuki was always a mischievous child, said Kyori. Mizuki the Tanuki, my father used to call her. Do you know she once broke into Principal Tanaka's office in order to change her end-of-year grades? She would have gotten away with it too had she not also been compelled to take some very indecent pictures of herself and upload them to his work computer before leaving. That's pretty insidious, I said, sensing a kindred spirit in this sister. Pretty nothing, snapped Kyori Matsumoto. It brought disgrace to our family and dishonor to our name. It was the first time I'd seen any emotion from her. I glanced at her bodyguards who looked equally stunned. But yes, she said, reeling herself back in like a viper. Like you, my father brushed it off as unchanneled potential. But I don't suppose you can understand how that made me feel. Do you? Can you, Mr. Sharp? Naked, I imagine, I said. But how do a couple of 20-somethings become Yakuza captains anyway? My story is simple, she said, sipping her tea. My father died tragically. I ascended to captain in his place. I could have been wrong, but I was pretty sure I saw a smile behind that teacup. Naturally, this never sat well with Mizuki. Spoiled child that she is, she believed father would bequeath her the great honor of captaincy. But only I am the firstborn, and only I have earned the right. How did Mizuki come to power? It's Principal Tanaka all over again, said Kyori. 10 months ago, Mizuki ascended to captain of the Koto ward, and it has been a nightmare ever since. She who controls Koto controls the docks, and already the Yakuza has suffered many setbacks due to her lack of sense. Once again, she brings dishonor to my father's legacy and disgrace to our name. My superiors will not stand for war between the captains, but something must be done. There is a captain's meeting in 2 weeks. Mizuki must be dealt with before then. And that's the end of chapter 1. I think actually this last paragraph, we can make this a little bit stronger. But okay, hopefully everyone's caught up. And like I say, we're about to go and write what happens when our guy, when Sharp goes and meets the sister. So, all right, let's just make this a little bit better. So, just this last little paragraph, I think, just having read through it, which is so useful. So thanks, guys, for making me read through it. Yeah, I think a few things come to mind. So, Mizuki, you can imagine, right? This younger sister was obviously going to be Yakuza captain. The father favored the younger sister, despite the fact that the older sister, Kyori, was, doing all the work, was being the good daughter. So you can imagine what would happen, right? Mizuki did not accede to my authority. And by the way, I'm only using these sort of, let's say, higher class words, she did not accede to my authority, right? Because that's how this character speaks, okay? Kyori Matsumoto, she is a Yakuza captain. She is obviously a very refined character. She likes to talk. She's very loquacious, and therefore all of her dialogue should be, with that vernacular. She should be speaking like that. So as head of our clan, and then we can use this 10 months thing. And 10 months ago, and 10 months after. And again, these sort of dates and times can all be changed later. It's just, whatever. How do you spell ascension? Ascension? Yeah. And 10 months after my ascension to captain, she abandoned, our family and sought asylum. With one of the rival Yakuza families. Okay, I'll explain this in a second. I think it's more in my head than it is coming out on the page. But I think this will work. with our rivals in Koto Ward. So we'd already sort of worked out a little bit of this before, but just to catch everyone up. So Kyori Matsumoto, one of the captains of the Yakuza, she owns and operates the territory of Shinjuku, right? Tokyo is split up into 23 different sort of sections or wards. And one second, guys, let me just plug this in. So Tokyo is split up like any other big city into different territories and wards. There are 23 of them. And in my version of the Yakuza, each captain is going to own and operate a separate ward, right? So there are 23 captains, etc. So yeah, Kyori Matsumoto, she takes over as captain from her father. Obviously, Mizuki doesn't like it. And I'm thinking that when Kyori's taken over as captain, she goes and punishes her younger sister just out of spite, just out of being just so jealous of the father's love for the younger sister, you know, despite the fact that the younger sister was always a troublemaker and didn't do what was told. And she's going to use this, you know, little finger amputation thing. That's the first thing she sort of does when she comes to power. She just says, right, younger sister, you're going to pay for, you know, being the favorite, right? I should have been the favorite, but as captain now I have authority. And she, you know, she goes and basically tortures her sister. So that's what we're going to do. Obviously, she's not going to say that outright here, but we can allude to it, right? So 10 months after my ascension to captain, Mizuki abandoned our family and sought asylum with our rivals in Koto Ward. Koto is another one of the areas in Japan. So Mizuki, she flees there, and you know, now it seems that she has weaseled. I like that word, weaseled. I like calling people a weasel as well if they do something wrong. You know, what a weasel. You know, just a great word. You know, weaseled her way to the top. That said, I might like the word weasel. The question is, would this character use that word? Maybe. I don't know. I'd have to probably, you know what? I'd have to probably go and check if weasels are considered lucky creatures or something in Japan. Because if that's the case, then she wouldn't say weaseled, right? Things like that, you've got to be sort of, you know, any editor, and this has happened to me so many times, editors will just go, right, that would never happen in this country because that animal is their mascot. And I just feel like an idiot because I've written half a page of cool dialogue about, you know, a beaver, and they just say, yeah, but that's not going to work. So boom, cut. You don't want that to happen. So anyway, that's just one thing to keep in mind. Okay, so it's Principal Tanaka all over again, said Kyori. Mizuki did not accede to my authority as head of our clan, and 10 months after my ascension to captain, she abandoned our family and sought asylum with our rivals in Koto Ward. Now it seems that she has weaseled her way to the top. Okay, and then we can have this stuff about, you know, she who controls Koto controls the docks. And it's again, this is all from the research we did, the port of Tokyo. We said that the shipping port might be a very cool place to use as a backdrop. You can imagine chase scenes in there. There's lots of contraband. You know, it's where the Yakuza does all its importing and exporting. So there could be something there. So let's just say it explicitly, is a major component in Yakuza operations. Yeah, and then already... One second, what's going on? Don't freeze. Don't freeze. What is going on? What is this mouse doing? You guys see this mouse spinning in different... There we go. Okay, catching up. And already the Yakuza has suffered many setbacks due to a lack of sense. Once again, she brings dishonor to my father's legacy and disgrace to our name. The funny thing, obviously, being, you know, this Yakuza captain keeps talking about, you know, her father's legacy, disgrace to the family name, where, in fact, she's actually the one who killed her father. But again, characters, you know, are funny people. We are all funny people. And you know, we can justify anything really that we want to. Okay, so let's now move way ahead to when our guy Sharp eventually meets Mizuki Matsumoto. And again, shout out to Kitty Wistful, because we had an idea for this scene where, hopefully you guys are following this. We just had that whole scene with Kyoryu Matsumoto and the story about the farmer and the rabbit. And we said Sharp is going to meet Mizuki. It's going to appear as though the whole plan is going to, you know, everything is going according to plan. And then Mizuki says, let's eat. And she serves him rabbit, right? And the idea being that, you know, Kyoryu Matsumoto asked him to be the rabbit from the parable, and Mizuki serves him cooked rabbit, as if to say, I know exactly what you're doing here. You're not fooling anyone. And then Sharp is going to be in big trouble, right? So this is some kind of scene from about the midpoint of the novel. If we're using the Save the Cat writes a novel formula, we're not using it, but if we were to use it, the 15 points, then this would be a scene, either a false defeat at the midpoint, or it would be the just before the, you know, dark night of the soul. Those are the beats of the story. Again, guys, check out Save the Cat. It's a really good resource. Even if you don't actually use it to plot your novels, it's very good to help you formulate how a story should progress. Okay, so there are no rules, but that's a pretty good guideline, let's say. Okay, so Sharp is meeting Mizuki, and if Mizuki, I think I like this idea that Kyoryu has made Mizuki basically cut off most of her hand, you know, just spitefully. So maybe this Mizuki is wearing a glove, right, on one hand. Maybe she has a robotic hand or something. Ooh, that could be cool. That could be very cool, actually. But at least, you know, it's sort of a prosthetic hand, I guess, at the very least. So let's say that this one, first that Mizuki wore she wore a black leather glove, something like this. Again, it doesn't have to be good stuff here. We're just sort of getting the idea on paper. On her left hand, because I think the Yibutsume, that amputation was about the left hand, right? It's the left little finger. Yes, left little finger. Okay, so on her left hand, you know, her right hand, you know, was like a stark porcelain white. We said that these are twin sisters, and we said that Kyoryu Matsumoto had this great complexion, like a, you know, a perfect porcelain doll. So let's just get these. Obviously, this is not anywhere close to being readable, but we're just getting the thoughts down on paper. Also, Kyoryu Matsumoto had spoken Japanese to Sharp, so maybe Mizuki speaks to him in English, you know, as a little bit of a, what's the word? Like, she's putting him down. She's not treating him with the same kind of respect. Had spoken to me in Japanese. Let's say, yeah, okay. Apparently, you know, this sister didn't think I was as well endowed in the tongue department, right? I mean, our guy Sharp, our protagonist, he has got a little bit of a, you know, a darker sense of humor. We said he has a problem with women, which that is sort of his character arc, at least one of them. He's got to figure this out. He's got the ex-wife. We had many comments in chapter 1 where we thought, wow, that's what the hell is this guy on about? You know, I didn't want to let a woman stay in control, all that kind of stuff. So obviously this guy has some learning to do. Remember, guys, I have no problem with women. Our protagonist has a problem with women. Okay, so whatever. That's basically what I'm just saying with this stuff is, you know, we need to just sort of describe Mizuki a little bit. So let's hear her side of the story now. So we heard what Mizuki said about them growing up. Okay, so Kyori Matsumoto, the older sister, was always jealous of the younger sister. So, my sister was always jealous of my father's love for me. Maybe it's my father's relationship, whatever, but okay. And when Kyori ascended to captain, she took no greater pleasure than she took no greater pleasure than in punishing me. What do I want to say here? Punishing me for it. My sister was right. And when Kyori ascended to captain, she took. I just put great pleasure. Why do I have to say it like that? Yeah, she took great pleasure in punishing me for it. And then she's gonna. Okay, and then we can just introduce these things. Have you heard of? How do you spell it? Yubitsume. Yubitsume. Have you heard of Yubitsume? Our guy Sharp hasn't heard of it, obviously. So again, guys, tip here. We've spoken about this before, but you can't just dump a load of exposition on a reader. Okay, that's the first thing any editor is going to say. This is crap. Throw this out. You can't just information dump. What you can do is have one character explain to another character something that they don't know. Okay, because then it's not exposition. It's part of the conversation. It makes sense. So you have to have a character standing in for the audience who doesn't know something. That is a critical thing. And that applies to novels, screenplays, any stories. It's just something that you learn along the way. And after your editor has beaten it into you so many times, you sort of catch yourself doing it naturally. So I shook my head. You could also do it in the way that, she says, have you heard of Yubitsume? And Sharp, your protagonist goes, yeah, I'd heard of that before. And then explains it to us in prose. You could do it like that, but dialogue is generally a much more sort of direct. It's just much better. You're right. We forget prose. You want to hear characters talking, speaking, because it tells us what they sound like. It's easier to visualize and to see the scene in our head. So okay, Yubitsume is okay. Now, just literally sort of not quite copy and pasting from Wikipedia, but I'm obviously just gonna sort of take this information down and try and turn it into dialogue. Nothing wrong with doing this, guys, right? It's just using research to create compelling and interesting dialogue. Okay, so Yubitsume is a ritual of repentance. I like that. The ritual of repentance, right? A way to atone. All right, this is most right. But instead of offenses, let's say transgressions. I like that word better. Transgressions against another, and and humble oneself before the greater whole. Whatever, doesn't matter. Come back. She took out a pure white handkerchief, let's say. Handkerchief. And very sharp, ornate knife. So maybe this is the scene where she's sort of alluding to the fact that she's gonna make Sharp cut off his fingers. Very sharp, ornate knife, something like that. I'm gonna put this in brackets because I'm not sure exactly what this scene is. Maybe let's write further and see what happens. So let's. She's going to keep giving backstory. Now, remember, these two sisters, Kyori Matsumoto was very loquacious. She loved her words. if you notice in that chapter 1, she had basically paragraphs of dialogue, and our guy Sharp, he had like one line, right? So one of the characters is speaking, with excess, verbose, a lot of words because they like to talk, and you should have your other character be a very terse, use very short sentences because it's that dichotomy. It's the two opposites will magnify each other, and then we can very clearly understand who's talking when. We can establish the characters in the mind. So I think it's fair that this sister is also a very loquacious person. They have, obviously they're twins. They have similar upbringing, the same upbringing really. So they probably have the same affinities for certain things. One of those being words and talking. They like to hear themselves talk. So some say this ritual, what does it say? Originated with, degenerate. I don't like itinerant. I don't think. Yeah, I just don't think it's a strong word. Degenerate gamblers who could not, pay their. And this is just a history lesson, right? This is just, we like as readers. I like to learn new things. So a little bit of information is pretty good. Pay their debts. But in fact, it dates back much further to the samurai. So I think both these sisters are very into their samurais, it seems. We had, the puzzle boxes being used by the samurai and the ancient warlords. And who isn't into samurai and ancient warlords? That's great stuff. But let's say here, because it said, legendary. Okay, we'll say legendary swordsman. I'm imagining maybe this is taking place at Mizuki Matsumoto's house, right? Her palatial home as captain of the Yakuza, and she's sort of taking Sharp around her dining room, maybe, and there is a there are swords on the wall. It's a very sort of historic, a very illustrious house and setting, as opposed to the restaurant where Kyori Matsumoto took him. Both these sisters are Yakuza captains, right? So they're rich. They're wealthy and they're well educated. It's just that this sister Mizuki is perhaps a little bit more crazy, a little bit more unhinged than the other one. Also, the fact that we sort of see the sword, we see the knife, we see these things, it starts to add that tension. We're around sharp objects. Bad things can happen around sharp objects, but also it gives us a way that if Sharp gets into trouble, he's surrounded by sharp objects which he can use himself. So, Mizuki says, I know that you are here to kill me. I know what you're, I'm onto your plan. I know what you and my sister are planning. She, snaps her fingers. Her bodyguards come in. Sharp is like, oh, crap. And then realizes, wait, there's a sword on the wall there. I'll have that. Thank you very much. And, we have a scene where we've laid the seeds previously, and then it's not out of the blue that, oh, by the way, I've been carrying a gun the whole time. We don't want that. So, yeah, that's another thing we need to keep in mind. So what am I doing here? You see Mr. Sharp. Okay, is that right? You see Mr. Sharp. Right, so in swordplay, I don't think this is the right word, but in swordplay, but according to what we've read on Wikipedia, it is the little finger which grips the tightest on the hilt. So to amputate this finger, then, is to weaken the grip, or weaken one's grip. Okay, so this is her just explaining this whole idea, weaken one's grip. It's quite a it's a symbolic act, this cutting off the little finger, right? Because you cut off the little finger, you're unable to grip your sword as well as you could have before, and therefore you're not as strong a fighter, so you're sort of the runt of the pack, and the runt of the pack has a greater dependency on the pack as a whole to protect them in battle. So that's what they're saying, right? So the Yakuza are using this symbolically to say, right, we're cutting your finger off, and now, you should rely on us more, right? They're weakening you as a person in order that you rely on them more, and therefore your loyalty is increased, right? Is increased to these people who you have wronged, basically. Does that make sense? I think that's basically what this whole thing is about. So to amputate this finger then is to weaken one's grip, and a weak grip betrays a weak warrior. Oh, this is okay. Just thinking about grips, a weak grip betrays a weak character, a weak warrior. If she has had to amputate her hand, let's say she does get a robotic hand, then you can imagine in that first encounter, she shakes Mr. Sharp's hand with her gloved hand, and he's like, bloody hell, that's a good grip. He doesn't know it's a robotic hand under there. He doesn't know anything about this yet. So maybe they shake hands at the beginning. Let's put that over here. They shake hands. Okay, and Mizuki has a tight grip. Mizuki's grip is immense. And, she's sort of smiling at him as she crushes his hand very slightly. And it's alluding to the fact that right from the get-go, Sharp is in trouble in this scene. He is in a world of trouble. Weak grip betrays a weak warrior. Thus, he becomes more dependent on the protection of his master, let's say. And now she's sort of going to reveal, I think she reveals that, right, imagine she has one gloved hand and she just starts to, pluck at the fingertips, takes off the glove, and we see this robotic hand underneath, right? And then she sort of carries on with this. I think it's something like that. That's sort of the image I have in my mind. That would make a good movie scene there. Or at least a good image on the camera. She plucked at the fingertips of her gloved hand. It's hard to write this, actually. How do you write that how do you write this direction? Well, you write it as awkwardly as you need to in order to get the point across, and then you refine it, don't you? So removing removing the thin leather sheath, whatever. And then Sharp is obviously, he sees this robotic hand, he's going to be like, whoa. What lay beneath? 14. 14, is that right? I'm just counting the knuckles on my hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So if we said that this article is saying that if you do one offense, the yubitsume is to cut off the tip of the little finger. A second offense, the next knuckle. Next offense, that knuckle. So I'm just imagining, Kyori Matsumoto, she becomes captain, and then she has her minions bring in her sister, have them make her kneel before her, and she recounts, these are all the offenses that you have committed against me and our family and our father by being so mischievous, right? There was the incident with Principal Tanaka, and she just, the fact that he loved you more than he loved me. She's just going to rattle off a list, and 14, it's going to be, of course, 14 offenses long, and then she says, and now you're going to pay for it with this ritual of yubitsume. And this is the whole backstory, right? So she cuts off all the fingers, or maybe she makes Actually, who does cut off all the fingers? Does the person themselves cut off all of the fingers? That's a good line. Let's put that in. She cut off all your fingers. And then, oh, come on. She shook her head. You know, I did. Okay, it could be something like that. It's sort of a kind of a powerful line. Depends what comes before it, but let's keep it in there for later. Okay, so right, so 14 offenses did Curie accuse me of the day after her ascension to captain, right? So one of the sisters becomes captain of the Yakuza after her ascension. Let's just say after her ascension. Yeah. For each offense, another knuckle. I don't know if that's right. For each offense, another knuckle. Kyori cut off your fingers. Mizuki shook her head. I did. You know, that's pretty powerful, right? Can you imagine two people staring at each other? One of them shows this sort of robotic hand, and then recounts the story of having to cut off all her fingers at her sister's command, her jealous sister's command. Obviously, then she flees. She abandons the family. That's quite natural. She goes and seeks refuge with a rival Yakuza clan, and has worked her way up through the ranks, and is now a Yakuza captain herself and seeking revenge. So obviously this is going to all blow up, right? We're going to have these two sisters really going to war. Sharp is sort of their puppet in between. That's kind of what this story wants to do. So I think anyway. But yeah, so let's see. So it was, you know, hard to look her in the eye. Even Sharp has to admit, you know, he might have a problem with women, but this woman in front of him is a pretty hardcore, you know, this one's not to be messed with. This is a powerful woman. Okay, what do I do? I want to say something like the power behind her eyes, made me very uneasy. It's also that implication of threat, right? Is that this Mizuki Matsumoto, she is not to be messed with, right? And I was pretty glad. Let's say then, okay, the servant shows. So I'm just imagining that they are in like her palatial house, something like that. They're talking. She's invited him in. It looks like it's going well. She's starting to give clues that it's not going well, and then the servant comes in and says, dinner is served. At which point, it's revealed that it's Rabbit, and we hearken back to that parable. Kyoto Matsumoto saying, "I have enough tanukis. What I need is a rabbit." And then Mizuki serves Rabbit on a plate. The subtext being, I know exactly who you are. I know what's going on. You're a dead man, right? It's that's the idea. The servant chose this moment to tell us that dinner was served. Excellent. Maybe she should say wonderful. I think Kyori said wonderful in the last chapter. Excellent said whatever. Excellent said Mizuki. And smiled as no. Okay. And it's something like this. And watching my reaction as the waiter put up front of us. Yeah, she smiled. She smiled at me and said, I hope you like rabbit. Right, and then Sharp is like, oh crap, right? He sort of gets it. Okay, so two things need to happen. Right, that's obviously the end of this. That is the end of a scene. Whether it's oh, is that the end of the page as well? That's pretty good. Oh no, it's not. It's just got a page break. Okay. Whatever. That's sort of at least a scene break. It's got to be a scene break. We know that. Scene break. And then, okay, so we'll just put that in there. Okay, so let's see. What have we got here? Just bring this up a little bit bigger. Okay. So, okay, so Sharp meets Mizuki. You know, they shake hands and Mizuki's grip is immense, right? It's that gloved hand and it's immense, right? Her grip and Sharp is immediately like, what the hell is going on? So they've got to describe the two of them. Okay, so my sister was always jealous of my father's love for me, and when Kyori ascended to captain, she took great pleasure in punishing me for it. Have you heard of Yubitsume? I shook my head. Yubitsume is a ritual of repentance, a way to atone for transgressions against another and humble oneself before the greater whole. Then we need to see the I wonder if maybe she's kept, you know, she's kept the knife and she's kept the handkerchief which she used to cut off her own fingers. You know, she sort of kept it as a motivational device, right? She looks back. Remember, she fled from her sister. She fled her family to go and join a rival clan. And maybe she took this knife with her, so it was always in her mind, I'm going to get revenge against my sister because she made me cut off my hand, right? So maybe this is in some sort of, you know, like ornate display case. Maybe Sharp asks, you know, oh, what's this knife about? You know, something like that. Let's put it in a display case. That could work. So there was a glass display case. Containing a pure white handkerchief and a very sharp, ornate knife. Right, the blade of the knife was crusted with brown blood. Okay, so she's really kept this knife. Something like that, right? Some say this ritual originated with degenerate gamblers who could not pay their debts, but in fact, it dates back much further, to the samurai and legendary swordsman. You see, Mr. Sharp, in swordplay, it is the little finger which grips the tightest on the hilt. To amputate this finger, then, is to weaken one's grip, and a weak grip betrays a weak warrior. Thus he becomes more dependent on the protection of his master. I think there is quite a good bit of subtext in that. She plucked at the fingertips of a gloved hand, slowly removing the thin leather sheath. I gaped at what lay beneath. 14 offences did Kyori accuse me of the day of her ascension, said Mizuki. For each offence, another knuckle. Another knuckle was cut. Kyori cut off your fingers? Mizuki shook her head. I did. It was hard to look her in the eye. Right, the power, that's a terrible line, but it's whatever. I sort of understand what I want to say. I was pretty glad the servant chose this moment I was pretty glad the servant chose that moment to tell us that dinner was served. Excellent, said Mizuki, and, watching my reaction as the waiter put our plates in front of us, she smiled at me and said, I hope you like rabbit. It's that very, oh crap, it's that oh crap moment. This has all gone straight to hell. This scene obviously needs to be a lot longer. It needs to go on for at least 2 or 3 of these pages, which won't be hard to do. But I think that's basically the idea. What do you guys think? Let me know in the chat. Let me know on the whispers. You guys like to whisper me a lot. I guess it's that sort of art. We're all a bit shy with our words in front of people. But okay, I think that's basically the scene, this future scene. And now it just needs to be fleshed out. But that's 1 page. That is 1 page. And remember, the goal of this project anyway is we write one page a day, and we might scrap it the next day, but the goal is 1 page a day. It's not a huge goal by any stretch of the imagination, especially considering someone like Stephen King is writing 6 pages a day. But one page a day, it's an achievable goal, and it allows me to at least air my thoughts and share my process with you guys, so that you guys can also help, and we can all sort of learn and help each other become better writers, better storytellers. But yeah, okay, so this is where we are. This is the meeting between these 2 characters. Okay, so this, we did have this thing about chapter 2 where Sharp goes to the port of Tokyo, and he's going to start working his way up through the ranks. So let me explain what the problem was with that in my mind, and why I'm just not happy with it. I mean, I went through this on Friday, but for everyone who's joining now, so yeah, we have this scene with Kyori Matsumoto, and she tells Mr. Sharp, she tells Oliver Sharp, our protagonist, I want you to go and kill my sister, or at least I want you to infiltrate her organization, and let's bring her down together, right? Because she's a problem. And again, it's all stemming from jealousy. That's it. But whatever. She wants to take down her sister, and her sister is in a place called in Koto, and within Koto is the port of Tokyo, right? It's a very, very important area in Tokyo, and it's a very, very important point for the Yakuza operations. So this guy, our guy Sharp, in chapter 2, obviously he gets a job at the port, and he's going to sort of weasel his way up the ranks of the enemy organization and help to take it down. The problem with that is it's very slow. It's really slow. Yes, it makes perfect logical sense, but it's just a bit slow. It doesn't grab me as a writer to have to write all of that. The sort of, okay, we're gonna start him at the bottom, and we're gonna, the first day he's sort of just, sort of getting the lay of the land, and yeah, you can make it interesting. Like, we had section 6 at the port is closed off, right? It's shut down for construction. They tell me, but and then our guy wants to find out what's really going on in section 6 of the port. What's this sister Mizuki planning? What's in the shipping containers? That he's told never to open the shipping containers with the black seals, right? We had that, but look, you can make anything interesting. I'm just not convinced that that's where the plot wants to go. Or at least I'm not convinced it's as good as what we had in the first chapter. So the question is, how do we get from this first chapter all the way to this meeting with the twin sister, without waffling, without adding in a whole bunch of filler, just because the plot demands something doesn't necessarily mean we have to spend ages doing it, right? I mean, I could very easily say, something along the lines of, chapter 2, and the dialogue, and our character just says, I could bore you with all the details of me weaseling my way up the ranks of the enemy organization, but to cut a long story short, 2 weeks after I had dinner with the 18th captain of the Yakuza, the 7th captain of the Yakuza called me to her house, right, to her home. She wanted to speak, and in one sentence, I've described everything that's happened, in the past few days, right? And that happened to me once when I wrote my first book, Hearing Voices. I had my editor said, "Yeah, this is. I understand what you're trying to do with the first chapter. Here's how you make it better." And the chapter was about 10 pages long, and he wrote one sentence and said, that's your whole first chapter. I've told the reader everything that they need to know in one sentence. My sentence is better than your whole chapter. And he was right. It was absolutely better because it was just more immediate. There wasn't any waffle, and it grabbed the attention of the reader. And in fact, that's a technique you can use for the first line of anything that you write. Is imagine a chapter, imagine an entire scene, and instead of writing it as a chapter, can compress it into one sentence. Because if you can do that, then you will immediately grab the reader's attention and go, "Ooh," they're immediately drawn in because one sentence has had so much packed into it that they can already see a full scene in their head. They're already into the story. So that's something to keep in mind. But okay, so those are my thoughts. That's our writing for today. And then tomorrow, I think we're just going to keep on fleshing out this scene that comes in the future. I mean, it already grabs me a bit more than what we were writing in chapter 2. So I'm going to continue with this scene, see what elements might need to be. So for instance, in this scene, Sharpie's obviously going to be in a lot of trouble. So by writing this scene, I'll be able to say, okay, he's in this mess. That means I'm going to have to put something back in the story, something that happened a while ago that will help him to get out of this situation. So it's all kind of working backwards. We know what the problem is going to be, so we need to set up the solution well in advance. Okay? Obviously, when a reader is reading, they'll go through everything and they'll see the solution without seeing it. Then they'll get to this part. So, we have, one character in chapter 2 saying, I buried a gun under the shed, right? Because once I fired it, I had to bury it under there so the police wouldn't find it, whatever. And then in chapter 6, chapter 10, the protagonist is, he runs into his friend's house and, there are men chasing him and they've got guns and he doesn't know what to do. And then he remembers, oh yeah, there's that gun under the shed. So he runs into the shed, he barricades himself in, the men are chasing him, and then, our guy comes out with a blaster and he blasts them away. And that doesn't feel contrived. That just feels like, oh yeah, that's a logical progression, right? We remember as the readers, oh yeah, the gun. Yeah, we remember that. So it's not Deus Ex Machina. It's just, oh yeah, that's part of it. But when you're writing, you can't do that. You have to sort of see the problem in advance, and then you go back and you shove in whatever is necessary. So hopefully that will come off when we're doing this. But the lesson for today, if there is one, is if you're writing something, maybe it's chapter 2 like me, and you're not totally sold on where it's going, but you do know what a later scene has to be, write that later scene, right? Because then you're at least you're writing, number one. Number two, you'll probably get ideas of what needs to happen in the chapter that you're stuck on by writing a future scene. So yeah, that's it. Okay, guys. I hope you have enjoyed today's stream. And we will be back tomorrow. Same-ish time. I think tomorrow is actually slightly later. Again, I'm still fiddling around with the times to try and accommodate as many people as possible. Please do, subscribe or follow the channel at least, and follow on, Facebook as well. There's earlier videos if you want to see how we constructed this first chapter, which I do think is actually it's holding up fairly well, right? I think we got a good first chapter for this novel. If you want to see how we built that up, then those initial videos are on YouTube. The full stream, is just recorded and onto YouTube. So check those out, and please do send in comments. Tell us what you're writing. Tell us your experience. We've had one screenwriter in here on Friday who joined the discussion, and it's great, right? We just want to build this community up, everyone helping each other. So same time ish tomorrow, and please tune in when I will continue to, here's the sign off, right before your